Hey everyone, Pugs here with 2 new reviews for y'all. Or should I call myself Petrifying Pugs? Because today we've got a real spine-tingling, goosebump-raising, heart-palpitating double feature with Scaredy Pants and I Was a Teenage Gary. These are 2 must-watch episodes every Halloween for me, so I'm really excited to get into this. And you guys know the drill by now. I just want to say thanks to everyone who's been watching, liking, and commenting. These last few reviews have been receiving a lot more attention than I was expecting, and so that's pretty cool, and I just appreciate all of y'all. I'll save the rest of my comments about Halloween and the for the reviews and my closing thoughts, so we can just go ahead and get started with these reviews. Starting off my spooky reviews today, we've got Scaredy Pants, which is a must-watch every October. This is simply a really good Halloween episode. I'm just going to say it right now. When I was looking over other comments on the forum, I was surprised to see that so many people found this episode to be boring or lacking, and that's definitely not how I feel. Maybe I just love the whole Halloween vibe and environment of this episode, so even when it gets slow, it's still engaging for me. And you guys already know I adore good atmosphere, and this episode's got it in droves. Just look at the SpongeBob wiki page for this episode. The production art is fantastic. And any parts of the episode, showing the backgrounds and other characters getting up to Halloween activities, man, I love that so much. The music in this episode is also fantastic at just setting the mood. While we're on that, let's talk about the track, The Flying Dutchman. Okay, first off, I love this track so much. Dang, it's good. And yeah, more surf rock. I already made my position on that clear in my culture shock review. Okay, moving on. But what's with this show and having amazing soundtracks being associated with The Flying Dutchman? There's this track, and then there's also Battle for Bikini Bottoms, Flying Dutchman's Graveyard track, and I'm gonna count the backing track of the Halloween Rock bottom level in the Cosmic Shake as Flying Dutchman related because I can. Haven't finished that game yet, so if there's any tracks I'm explicitly missing, don't say anything. Anyway, back to the episode. The humor of Scaredy Pants is slower than other episodes, as is season 1's tendency, but that doesn't make it any less funny to me. Now, I will admit that this episode is mostly funny at the end, but there's some good moments throughout, like the whole haunted mattress/sleeping bag thing. I also liked Mr. Krabs' ghost story to SpongeBob and SpongeBob interrupting Mr. Krabs. That usually gets a good chuckle out of me. Patrick trying to figure out the difference between SpongeBob and a ghost puppet also usually makes me laugh. We also get a lot of good SpongeBob screams in this episode, so everyone say thank you, Tom Kenny. And speaking of thanking him, the French narrator is also great in this episode. And this episode also has some wholesome moments in it. Every scene between Patrick and SpongeBob before we get to the Krusty Krab is just so warm. Especially when they ding-dong ditch. That was adorable. Like I've said before, season 1 was in its bag when it came to the cuteness factor of SpongeBob and Patrick. They knew what they were doing. Anyway, let's talk about the first real appearance of the Flying Dutchman, because I guess technically he was mentioned and pictured in Squidward the Unfriendly Ghost, but he wasn't there, okay? This is a supporting character that I have never disliked to my knowledge. Whenever he's in an episode, I know it's about to be good. At least his scenes will be good. And also his voice actor, Brian Doyle Murray, he hits the mark every time. I'm telling you, this show is excellently voice acted. I have not seen a bad job yet. Anyway, lastly, the ending of this episode is just excellent. SpongeBob scaring off the Flying Dutchman and everyone else with his appearance is just a classic SpongeBob ending. And the ending line, don't worry, it'll grow back, always catches me off guard and gets me laughing every time. And it was also gratifying to see everyone be scared of SpongeBob for real, even if he doesn't get any particular satisfaction out of it. I guess they won't be calling him Scaredy Pants anymore, at least. If you couldn't already tell, I love this episode. It's definitely in my favorites of season 1, and one I look forward to watching during Halloween every year. And like I said before, the vibes of this episode are just immaculate. They're just immaculate, and they pull you in from the very first minute. SpongeBob being a scaredy cat is also just perfectly in character for him, and this trait of his is a good source of conflict for the first half of the episode. If it wasn't already obvious, this episode is definitely well into my amazing tier. I love it, I have no problems with it, and so it has earned its spot in my amazing tier, coming in with a score of 9.4 out of 10. Continuing and rounding off our spooky review sesh today, we've got I Was a Teenage Gary, the other Halloween episode of Season 1. And man, believe me, do people not like this one. I wouldn't say it's hated, but it isn't beloved, that's for sure. And let me just make it clear right now, I do not find myself in agreement with those who rate this episode so poorly. I actually enjoy this episode quite a bit. Now, is it as good as Scaredy Pants? Well, no. But it isn't bad at all. In fact, I'd call it pretty good. As CEO of Gary the Snail, this episode is just an automatic win. Not only do we get to see lots of Gary here, but we also get to see lots of SpongeBob interacting with Gary, which I absolutely adore because they are so cute and wholesome in this episode from beginning to end. In general, I like the character dynamics a lot here. I really wish we got to see Squidward and Gary interact in earnest though, but hey, I'll take what I can get. I think the beginning of this episode is probably the slowest part. Even if it is cute to watch SpongeBob playing with Gary, it doesn't take too long for things to pick up though, because that starts once Patrick shows up like a minute or two in. From there, I find I Was a Teenage Gary to be pretty funny throughout, and a good Halloween tale that can be enjoyed at any time of year. I love how SpongeBob tries to prepare Squidward for taking care of Gary, because, that's his cherished pet. Unfortunately, Squidward ain't listening, and all he's thinking about is a whole weekend of relaxation. I love when, the jellyfishing convention bus returns, Squidward's tan just, comes right off as he realized just how screwed he is. And honestly, for forsaking Gary in such a way, Squidward deserves worse than what he got. I'm mostly kidding. Squidward, you're on thin ice. Thin ice. Anyway, the dramatics once SpongeBob finds Gary in his emaciated but actually dehydrated state are great. You can feel how much SpongeBob cares for his snail, which is heartwarming, while the moment also pulls at the heartstrings. And I like that Squidward actually feels guilty about forgetting all about Gary. He's supposed to be a jerk with a heart. Maybe not a heart of gold, but a heart nonetheless. And I also love how the doctor shows up just to give SpongeBob the snail plasma before just getting the heck out of Dodge because his hands aren't steady. And then that medicine ends up getting stabbed in SpongeBob. And I guess the Halloween aspect of this episode does begin in earnest a bit late into it, more than halfway through. But I think that makes this episode better to watch year round since it has these two distinct segments. Anyway, SpongeBob's transformation into a snail is probably the only legitimate issue I have with this episode, as that scene just felt so weird and uncomfortable and out of place, and not just because of the noises, although that was definitely a significant part of my judgment. Thankfully, once we get past that odd moment, the episode is back to being great, with SpongeBob showing up at Squidward. That's pretty great, and I love Squidward's reaction to the transformed SpongeBob, and the whole chase scene in Squidward's house is hilarious, and I just love how the house ends up getting flipped in the end. I think that's a great bit of visual comedy. And then the ending of the episode is just the perfect kind of stinger I love to see, from Gary, SpongeBob, and Squidward singing some alley cats, to Squidward getting hit by Patrick's boot, to Squidward's pain singing in the end. It's all very solid and very entertaining. Other than these few remarks, I really don't have all that much to say about this episode. It isn't rolling on the floor type of hilarious, but it is pretty funny in moments, and it doesn't really bore me. As I said before, the beginning starts a bit dully, but other than that, the episode is plenty engaging. The transforming scene does take me out of it a bit though, which kind of messes up the transition between the first and second segments of the episode, but once we get past that moment, things become much more enjoyable again. So, with all of this in mind, I'd say I Was a Teenage Gary belongs in my good tier, coming in with a score of 7.8 out of 10. As always, I wanted to share some closing thoughts of mine. So, fun fact, Halloween is actually my favorite holiday. I guess that could be a reason why I love both of these episodes a lot. And yes, I love I Was a Teenage Gary, even if I did put it in my good and not amazing tier. Sometimes you love, but you don't like. Though, I guess in this case, good tier still means like, so I guess that wasn't really the best place to use that phrase. I don't know. Anyway, since I love Halloween and SpongeBob so much, I do a Halloween marathon of SpongeBob episodes every year, and every year these 2 episodes are what kick me off. I do kind of wonder if I should start adding Squidward the Unfriendly Ghost to these marathons, though. I guess that's something to consider. Anyway, I hope that y'all liked my themed graphics. I was going back and forth about whether I wanted to do it. And then I was like, okay, I guess I will. And then like trying to find an actually like transparent like spiderweb PNG was actually so difficult, especially because like I needed one in white because I used dark graphics. But oh my god. Anyway, I made it work eventually. This was definitely more work than it probably should have been, but it was kind of fun to make Halloween graphics, especially because it's, March. But yeah, other than these few things, don't really have too much to say for these closing remarks. So I guess I'll just close us out today, and I'll see y'all in the next review.